And hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining the Autonomous Cloud webinar from Ultima. I'm just going to take you through, I'm almost cancelled webinar. I'm just going to take you through what we're going to talk about today for the next half an hour. We'll try and keep it into the half hour. There's an awful lot to talk about, but we'll try and get through quickly. I'm going to introduce who we are, what the cloud share responsibility model is, how we can automate BAU activities, what can be automated, all the way through to what our platform looks like and how we can assist in automating the services that exist within Microsoft Azure and in the cloud world. So firstly, introductions. Yes, I'm Matt Hudson, head of modern data center. So I cover so my practice deals with a lot of the hybrid IT services within Ultima. So we're talking about data centers, data center networking, as well as hypervisors and storage and whatnot, but also with the modern data center world, we're talking about AWS and Azure as well. And with me, if you introduce yourself, Chris.
Thank you, Matt. So yeah, my name's Chris Kirk. I'm one of the cloud consultants here at Ultima. So as the clue is in the title, I cover pretty much everything to do with Azure. So IaaS, PaaS, automation, platforms that are just platform services, everything in between pretty much. It's a lovely moving target Microsoft has given me because they're always making changes. So it always keeps life interesting, to put it mildly. So I'm going to talk a little bit with Matt today around kind of the more techie bits, I guess, around autonomous cloud and kind of what we've come up with, basically.
Oh, thank you, Chris. So the cloud shared responsibility model. Some of you may have seen this or a similar one, and particularly there are ones around the security shared responsibility model within the cloud. But we like to talk about what happens when you move your services into Microsoft Azure, or Azure, as I was supposed to call it, or now can call it again. So we have within the on-premise world, we're obviously responsible for the physical infrastructure, but in the cloud world, that clearly goes away. But when we're looking at IaaS services, PaaS services, and SaaS services, it's not as simple as putting your service into the cloud and expecting Microsoft to deal with the patching of them, or the antivirus, or monitoring, or management, or security, or even the application configuration items as well. Even when you start looking at the SaaS models like Microsoft Office 365, although it's hosted by Microsoft do all of the patching of the service and provide the application. They don't actually do the configuration of that application. So you still have your responsibility to add licenses. It's still your responsibility to configure email addresses, or configure the individual settings, access controls, policy controls, and all those sorts of things. So even when we're talking all the way up to SaaS services, the responsibility of the customer is still there, even when you buy a service for Ultima, such as Microsoft Azure through CSP. So when we move services up to the cloud, we have to still do antivirus patching, and we start to provide documentation and monitoring. So what we're looking at is what Ultima can do with our customers to be able to fill that gap between what the cloud provider provides and what the customer wants to be able to do. Because ultimately, many customers are interested in delivering applications to their users, delivering services to their users, and really the patching a server at 3 in the morning is not really something on a high priority of things to do. So within Ultima, we've looked at those services we need to fill in at the gaps, understand what platforms within Microsoft Azure can provide those services, and where possible, and actually ultimately fully use Microsoft Azure inbuilt services to be able to provide patching, antivirus, monitoring, management, and those security. So to fill that void between what the cloud provider provides and what is expected of you. There'll still be some components where the customer has to provide guidance around, I need a new user, I need a service, and then going further, we can provide additional assistance around that as well. So within the SaaS world, where we're managing 365, for example, we can provide that user onboarding service for you as well. So it really makes that blue all the way to the top. Cool. And I guess the next question is there is what are you responsible for, but ultimately, why do we want to automate those services? And it's the same conversation we've been having for years around automation in general, particularly when we talk about robotic process automation. But really, it's all around consistency, speed, and productivity. So we have an issue with consistency right now. I'm not going to quote the stats because most stats are made up, but where we get to the point where many of the issues that occur within a customer's data center are generally caused by humans. Hardware is now pretty reliable, and when you're talking about the cloud, it's hardware is so abstracted from the service that actually you're one level further away. So really, things go wrong less often. Generally, when things go wrong, it's because a human has interacted with something, or a configuration that was done 2 years ago wasn't done correctly or was done differently on that server, which means that when we go and apply a patch to 100 servers, we actually find out that 98 of them are fine, but 2 of them fall over. And it's because 2 years ago when that server was built, it was built without the correct policies or without the correct security or without a correct update to it, or it's slightly behaving in a slightly different way. So where we provide automation, we can make that increase that accuracy, and really at that point, really dealing with exception handling. At that point, we want to make sure that all those tasks that are done automated, so they're consistent. And by that automation, we then add speed. Again, 3 o'clock in the morning, people are tired, don't really want to be there, and really shouldn't be patching servers manually or providing antivirus updates or expanding a C drive of a server. This is when things go wrong, and this is when time is money. These people are being paid overtime or shift allowances, so actually, or may not be operating at all. So be able to provide that 24/7 service where I request a change to a service, and within 5 seconds, 10 seconds, automation is executed on that. And again, and that leads to productivity. If I request a new server, I don't expect to wait 3 weeks for someone to provide that server to me, someone to spin up a server, then someone else to put antivirus on there, someone else to provide backup to it, someone else to add a DR policy to it, someone else to then install monitoring and then tweak the metrics to make sure that we're recording the right things. Productivity increases when I say I want a new VM is deployed, or a new SaaS service or PaaS service is deployed. A few minutes later, and all of those policies and configuration items are already deployed directly to that platform. And just really briefly, again, this is just a real snapshot of some of the things which we initially sat back on and said, okay, well, what is it that takes the time within a BAU environment within someone's platform? Managing antivirus, doing keeping architectural diagrams up to date, keeping documentation up to date in general. It's just time consuming, particularly in a cloud world, whether it's changing so frequently and rapidly. Provisioning servers, I spoke about, configuring backups, maintaining backups, providing restores, performing optimizations, patching. It's just a never-ending, non-stop process, which just really can be automated. And by running services in Microsoft Azure, we're able to get to the point where the platform is consistent. The services running in it are of a standard that we know because of the supported operating systems and supported services that sit there. So actually, automation becomes an easier concept in the cloud than it can be on-prem. So we can automate many of these services through our autonomous cloud platform.
Which I think I am going to have a bit of a speak about. So just to kind of carry on with what Matt was speaking about in terms of all these things that we can look to automate, all these things we need to have around consistency. As Matt also said, we've kind of sat back and we've mapped this all out, and what we've basically come up with is an autonomous cloud platform solution, where we've looked at what customers actually need as information, or where they need automation, so they can actually get on with something that's important to them, and they're going to get that benefit about the fact that we're helping you with the gap in terms of what Microsoft are doing for the cloud platform and what you need to do as a customer, basically. So in terms of, for example, with product fulfillment, as part of the autonomous cloud, we will give you a billing and trend analysis platform that you can actually have a look, see what you're spending, see what the trends are, see what's actually going on. You get a self-service portal in terms of you can actually build out new items using automation. You give it a couple of settings around a virtual machine, for example, that you want, and it will go off and build it for you, for example, because that is the power of the cloud. At the end of the day, we're using the built-in automation under the covers, and we're taking advantage of that. We've got things around Autonomous Cloud where we're helping you with documentation. So as Matt said, documentation is so time consuming, and the minute you finish it, it's out of date. It's like painting that bridge. I always forget the name of it. You finish it and then you have to start again. So as part of this, we give you automatic documentation generation, and it will track where if you do documentation runs between, say, a quarter or a month, it will then tell you effectively what services have been removed, what services have been added, and it will allow you to compare documentation runs. There's no need to write documentation. We can give you that through automation as part of this service. And the bulk of this is giving you proactive monitoring as well. This is not about just break fix when you get into the two kind of higher versions that we have of Autonomous Cloud, because it's divided into 3 tiers. We will give you the ability, if you would like, to have proactive based monitoring. So we can alert on not just your standard kind of VM style CPU and memory and disk kind of alerts, which is what you normally get in a kind of managed service wrapper. We have a solution that will actually monitor Azure that's designed to natively work that way. So it will monitor things like your storage accounts, your virtual networks. It will monitor PaaS services like your web apps or your PaaS SQL databases. It will even tell you in a very granular way through the activity log if someone has configured something or changed something they shouldn't have, that's considered a very production-based bit of resource. So if someone deletes a network, it will tell you that network has been deleted at this time by this user. So it is proactively monitoring those particular Azure resources for you as well. So it's giving you that management and that peace of mind that's designed from the ground up to use what Azure is designed to be. It's designed to look at all these tools, and we're giving you the ability to take advantage of that by giving you this wrapper that we're calling Autonomous Cloud. And that includes things like management around, as Matt said, patching, antivirus, policy compliance, backups. They're all automated and available to you. So when you have a virtual machine, for example, there is a patch management service that they will get added into the scheduled windows of patching, and they will automatically get patched for you. It's the same with the antivirus. It's the same with the policies. It will give you kind of remediation advice if you're not in compliance with your own policies. And the point is, this is an amazing wrapper to basically speed up your ability to look after Azure if you've got something running in Azure today. So what we've effectively come up with to get a little bit further down without getting too technical, we have taken those standard services that exist today in Azure, and we have designed effectively a wrapper around them that we have configured that takes those services that are designed to do certain jobs, such as Azure Policy, Azure Monitor, automation accounts, the log activity, dashboards, and we have pre-configured all of them in a package for you. So we deploy this to your environment as Autonomous Cloud, and we give you things like infrastructure dashboards and AV and patch management dashboards, backup dashboards, overall health dashboards. Because when you use Azure, if any of you have used Azure, you'll notice that it's very difficult to see what's actually going on at a very quick glance into your Azure environment. We give you that capability to have a look at exactly what's going on, and you can drill down into that as far as you want. We give you pre-configured alerting around monitoring, so you don't have to configure any alerting. We have sat back, thought about it, gone out to market, done a lot of research, and we have configured alerts that cover your VMs, your PaaS services, and your standard kind of activity based information that you want to do alerting on. All of this is done through centralized login. So all your resources have a centralized login point, and that wraps around things like Azure Policy that's pre-configured. Advisory and security best practice is also linked into this. We use automation accounts for the patching, the anti-malware, and also the onboarding. So when we're looking after virtual machines or PaaS services, and say, for example, you spin up a new virtual machine on premises today, for a lot of situations like this, you have to go and tell the managed service provider. They ask you what the VM is, they ask you for this, that, and the other. It takes a little while, bit of a back and forth. again, with the automation message with this does it for you automatically. It will scan the environment every day itself, and any new resource that it finds, it will automatically onboard them for you. There's nothing for you on that side of things. So what we're aiming for is onboarding should not be a pain. It should be relatively straightforward, and we're trying to get a reasonable sized Azure environment for management down to about a day in terms of the actual core onboarding process. It should be also worth mentioning that we don't have any VPNs with this either. So we have no complicated networking requirements to manage these environments. And we have links to our ServiceNow instance. So we have ticketing available to you that get logged via Azure as well. And how this has all come together is we've developed a little bit of software that will basically perform this onboarding process. We ask you a little bit of information about your Azure environment. We input this into our tool with the appropriate permissions on your Azure environment. Click OK, and it will go off and it will do this all for us. So even for us onboarding your environment into this, we have designed this with automation in mind. We didn't want this to be a long-winded process in terms of getting you all these lovely features and you having to wait 20, 30, 40 days or something along those lines. We want you to get this as quick as possible and configured as quick as possible with the consistency and the speed and the reliability that Matt also talked about previously as well. So when you run this tool, this will install all the monitoring. This will configure all the monitoring as well. It will configure all the ServiceNow elements. It will configure your onboarding process. It will onboard all the virtual machines it finds. You can opt out any virtual machines if you want. There's a process for that as well. It will do pretty much everything as it says on the previous diagram, all for you or automatically as part of this service to manage and maintain that particular Azure environment that you want to basically keep an eye on that side of things.
Okay, and Chris mentioned a moment ago the fact that I guess people's environments are different and people want different amounts of help depending on what they're trying to achieve. Even within a customer, they may want different requirements around dev than they do around their production systems. So we offer the autonomous cloud as a three-tiered system, where Essentials is really just the ability for a customer to be able to purchase Microsoft Azure offers. They're able to buy a self-service portal. They get some consumption reporting, some break-fix support. I know my backups aren't working well, or I'm having trouble starting a VM that's in Azure. Then we'll provide that level of basic support via Essentials. So people can buy into that model, or we can buy in Advanced, which really is the kind of the general BAU services. So the general patching, the backups, we'll provide a backup platform and provide a backup management. We'll also provide more mission critical support, the monitoring around that, and also we'll provide some security layers as well to be able to make sure that we're able to give not only spin up a virtual machine, but also provide security best practices and security monitoring around that. And we'll provide a little bit of continuous development. So we'll sit down with customers on a quarterly basis and work through, well, where are you currently within your environment? How can we best work with you to make those services better? And how we can change, look at road mapping the services to look at what's coming along in a year's time, and how we maybe want to move those services to new cloud native platforms. And then Ultimate is really that one step further, where we are working with a customer as a joint partnership. So we're no longer seen as a business as usual team. We're actually working with you to understand what applications you want to move there, how you're going to move them, how they get transformed. Really going down to low-level cost optimization. So looking at your platform, saying, right, okay, you realize you're spending this on these services. Maybe we can provide this better by moving it into a web app, and here's what that cost would be if we were to move it into a web app, and this is how we do it, and this is how we optimize your platform to be to run better and with higher performance, and actually really guide you with that journey into these cloud services and help you move more and more services into more effective ways in the cloud, whilst also doing that management piece and monitoring piece, and also providing the portal. And we're able to do that with a single cost model across all three areas, which I'll speak about in a moment.
So what I just wanted to very quickly highlight with this as well is the fact that I didn't want this to just be a webinar with just lots of words and pretty pictures. I wanted to show something that was to show everyone that this does exist today, even though it's still got a few things to be added on before we go generally available. This is something that does exist today, and this is an example of one of the dashboards that we will give you as well to monitor your infrastructure environment as an example. So we can monitor things like memory, CPU, disk space, general Azure service health. You can look at your topology for your networking as well, and this also gives you access to the ServiceNow portal where you can raise tickets yourself as well. So with Autonomous Cloud, we're giving you this management of your environment that you don't really get out of the box. So we can see this, and also you can see this as well, just to give you that overview in terms of what's going on. So we cover infrastructure. And we also cover, so this is another example as well, we give you things like backup monitoring and management as well, so you can see exactly what's going on with your backups. For example, any backup failures, completions, how much disk space it's taking up, kind of what the job status is at the moment in terms of last 30 days, 7 days, 24 hours. We can drill down into this data. But again, this is giving you a better view of effectively what is going on. And we give you up to 5 dashboards by default out of the box with this. So we're going to give you a dashboard around AV and patching, around general security, backups, infrastructure, general monitoring health as well. And if you're on the ultimate tier, then we give you the ability to have one or two other custom dashboards as well on that. And I also wanted to cover in terms of the auto onboarding, just to demonstrate that this is actually something that does exist today with Autonomous Cloud. So this is a quick screenshot summary of an environment where we have an automation process that runs every day. It gives a output summary in terms of in this example, this is virtual machines, any virtual machines that it's discovered, and it will let me know if those VMs if they're powered on, if they've already been onboarded, any new VMs that have succeeded in being added into the monitoring service, any VMs that are connected to a different workspace because there may be more than one for management, and any VMs that are not running and therefore it's just skip them because they're not running and they can't do anything with them. So this is just to demonstrate a bit around the automation, the fact that this does exist today, and this is how we can keep track of your environment automatically for you without that consultation with adding new services here and there whenever you need to, basically. And lastly, just to highlight one of the main features of this as well, of this service in terms of the monitoring. So at the core of it, we use Azure Monitor. So we're using native services here built into Azure to do the job. The reason for that is, and the reason I'm highlighting it is, we're not using any third-party software here. We're not taking a third-party solution for monitoring and then installing agents or something like that. This is a native service designed to do this job for your Azure VMs, your PaaS services, and the Azure platform itself. And we're not just using thresholding here. So we're not just doing things like, oh, CPU's at 90%, send an alert, memory's at 90%, send an alert. If I take disk I/O as an example, it's nearly impossible to do thresholding on disk I/O because every VM will be doing something differently from a disk perspective. So a busy disk on one VM may not be considered a busy disk on another VM. So we actually use machine learning for anomaly detection as well as thresholding in the background for this. So it will detect anomalies in things like disk I/O and therefore send an alert on that as well. All these alerts are pre-configured. You don't have to do anything with them. They're out of the box and designed to do their job, and they integrate into ServiceNow, which is our management and our ITSM tool for customers. You will have access to that as a customer, so you can log tickets yourself. If you want to do a change request or something manual, you can still do that like you normally would any other ITSM tool, as well as having a service catalog available to you as well. So the idea being, if you want to spin up a virtual machine or a storage account or a web app, you can do it by the Azure portal, that's fine. But if you use the service catalog, you're putting the few settings that it needs, click go, and it will do it all for you. The idea being, it's automation. The more we can automate it, the better it's going to be in the long run. And lastly on this, before I hand it back to Matt, I just wanted to highlight a bit about optimization as well. So Matt did allude to this a little bit earlier on, the fact that every every quarter, we will probably, at the moment it's every quarter, we will sit down with you from a technical perspective. So this is not just your standard going through tickets and all this kind of stuff. You will get a technical person to go through this with you in terms of looking at your trends and analysis on your optimization in terms of cost, because obviously we're an operational cost model with Azure. CapEx is no longer something that exists. So we pay for everything we use in Azure, and it's very common for that to kind of spiral a little bit, and you don't quite know where all this cost is going to. So we look at trend analysis, and we look at variation over time, and it can give a little bit of forecasting as well, where if costs are going to rise or fall over the next kind of month or two as well, which customers really like, the fact that they can see roughly where things are going. And we also help customers look at improvements. So we look at optimization improvements. So we look at idle databases, for example, idle services, disks that exist but the VM's been deleted. All these add up to costs that may not be apparent. So we use tools that analyze your environment, and we can basically advise you on where you can make improvements on that side of things. We use this with a customer recently, and basically they had about 4 PAS SQL databases on what's called the S3 tier. So it was actually quite a performance-based tier. They weren't really doing anything with it. So their developers had deployed it and not realized the tier. And we spoke to them using this tool, put it down 2 tiers below, saved them about £500 a month straight off the bat. So this tool is incredibly valuable for optimization. And it's not something we see a lot of people doing really in the industry at the moment, and you get this as part of the autonomous cloud setup to help you get the best effectively out of your environment.
Perfect, thank you, Chris. And yeah, so back to that model again, the 3-tier model. So I guess one of the questions is you're asking, yeah, what does this cost? I suppose so. We spoke earlier in the webinar. I talked about the essentials tier being a kind of a do-it-yourself model. We provide some support. We'll provide the platform around Microsoft Azure, so you can go ahead and spin up whenever you want, and we'll give you a little bit of help support. And that's part of our Microsoft Azure CSP subscription. So there's no additional cost to that. There's no additional effort required money-wise. So if you spin up a VM that's £100 a month, it costs you £100 a month. As simple as that. When we look at the advanced tier, where we're providing backup management and PAS monitoring, IaaS monitoring, mission critical support, as well as deployment of services, Linux patching and antivirus, some analytics and documentation and best practice, all that sort of stuff, we provide that at a really simplistic cost model. So if you're looking at a VM that's £100 a month, you'll receive a single bill from us, and instead of it being £100 a month, if it's on essentials, it'd be £140 a month on advanced due to 40% uplift. These are our pilot pricing right now. They will likely be adjusted during general availability. And the same with Ultimate as well. So a real simplistic cost model where we're looking at providing those additional advisory services and continuous improvement and design help, and actually deploying a firewall within the environment to help manage inbound, outbound perimeter security as well. We provide that all as part of the service. So it's a single cost again, with a 60% uplift on CSP. So you receive a single bill. If you spin up one VM in our environment, which is £100 VM a month, you receive a bill for £160 a month. A single cost. You're not paying one person for the platform, one person for the support, one person for the firewall licenses, one person for the patching, another one for providing backup as a service, whenever. It's a single cost model for across the tiers, which means total cost of ownership is really simplistic to understand within this model as well. We don't have to look at all those different support and cost models across different services being provided. So it really is cloud as a service as it was meant to be when cloud was first touted as the savior of BAU. Cool. And then just to close off, yeah, what's next? How can we help you with the cloud journey? So we have the autonomous cloud platform, which is currently well, it's just gone to preview. And we are working with customers, kind of a two-way communication with the customers during the preview. So we're able to provide the platform now, look at onboarding people, but it is a preview only by request, and we would like feedback and workshops to understand where we can improve and those sorts of things. So we have to sign on to a special preview program for that. But outside of that, we can also provide cloud services like cloud readiness assessments. We can understand, if you're on premise right now, we can help you understand what it would cost to move your services into the cloud, what the effort would be to do that, but also what the Microsoft cost would be for CSP. So, but also we will provide you what the autonomous cloud cost would be on top of that as well. So we can tell you, by moving into our autonomous cloud, it's going to take this much effort to get there, and this is your monthly cost for not only the cloud services, but also the support services and the migration services. There's a couple of hybrid, we have a number of hybrid solutions. Here's just a couple of examples around SQL and Azure File Sync, but we've got quite a few of these services now. If you're looking to doing a first step into Azure, that we can configure these up, and we have a workshop, we had a workshop a few weeks ago, which is incredibly successful. So we're rerunning it again as a lot of customers are interested in this, to be able to sit down and go through what these look like and how we can deploy these in your environments as proof of concepts, pilots, or even full deployments. And then finally, if you have any more information, then please, want any more information on any of this stuff or anything, please do email cloud@ultimate.com or talk to your account manager or account director, or anybody within the marketing team, and we can help put you in touch with the right people. Yeah, I want to thank you for your time, for bearing with us. I think we were 1 minute over, so not bad, Chris. Well done. And yeah, we hope to speak to you soon. Thank you very much.